Okay, we will call this November 6th meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Can I have the roll call, please?
Andre Spinelli.
Here.
Jared Gardner.
Here.
Radhika Krishna. Here. Scott Pullis.
Here.
Jeff Ron.
Here.
Brandy Eber. Brandy Eber. Daniel George.
Here.
Jim Winchester. Greg Strike are excused. And let me double check on Brandy. She was on the bridge phone. Let me call you on the record again, okay? Brandy Eber. Miss Eber, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we will be looking for a motion to reorder the agenda to hear item F5A, case 2023-0125 last. There's a motion by Commissioner Pullis, seconded by Commissioner Gardner. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the agenda is reordered. Next, motion to approve the October 25th minutes. Moved by Pullis, seconded by Gardner. Any corrections or discussion regarding the minutes? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Next item, disclosures. Commissioner Pullis?
No disclosures.
Going down the line, I will disclose that I will recuse myself from participating in case 2023-0097. Commissioner Krishna?
No disclosures.
Commissioner Gardner?
No disclosures.
Commissioner Ron?
Thank you. Through the chair, two disclosures to make. First being that I was excused from the October 2nd meeting when case 2023-0097 was first heard. However, I did listen to a recording of that hearing and am prepared to participate. The second disclosures are that I have prospective business interests not related to the cases we'll be hearing tonight, but for case 0097 and 0019 with the petitioner's representatives. Again, those matters are not in relation, but wanted to get that on the record as well, and believe that I can remain impartial and should not be recused from participating tonight. Thanks.
Commissioner George, anything to disclose?
No disclosures.
Thank you. Oh, Commissioner Aber, anything to disclose?
No disclosures.
All right, and now we will move to unfinished business, and I will hand the gavel to Commissioner Krishna.
All right, we'll take up unfinished business, which is case 2023-0097. May we have the staff report, if there is one?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just say that at the last meeting, the commission heard public testimony, closed the public hearing, and made a motion to postpone the case to this meeting in order for Planning Department and the petitioner to collaborate on a special limitation requiring housing with their requested rezone to B3. So in the memorandum, so just to remind everyone that the public hearing is closed, but of course that the commission can call the petitioner's representative back up if you have any questions for him. But it's now in a time when you'd make a motion for approval. And so the memo the department's written is the public hearing's closed, the case was postponed from the October 2nd meeting to this meeting. The commission asked the applicant and the department to develop a special limitation requiring residential development in the B3. We've done that, and you can read the agreed upon SL on page 2 of your packet. Under section 2, it reads, quote, "The district requires a minimum of 3 residential dwellings. The residential dwellings shall obtain a conditional certificate of occupancy prior to the issuance of a conditional certificate of occupancy for any other use." So it's saying that you have to build the residential before you could get the commercial or institutional or community use or any other use. That's how you get away from having to kick the can down the road. But it's written in a way that's flexible, has some flexibility for the property owner or the builder. That's what the commission asked for or struggled with, asked us for, and we couldn't provide you on the spot, the SL. There was one other thing that I was just thinking we had talked about, or what had been discussed by the commission at the last meeting was 4 dwelling units, but that was based on sort of a off-the-cuff thinking that these 3 lots could hold 4, under the R4 zoning, could have 4 dwelling units, because one of the lots, the one that's closest to Abbott Road, is a little bit bigger, but it's shy of being able to have 2 dwelling units. So if you're basing the number of units on the existing zoning, the R5, only 3 dwelling units could be constructed on these 3 lots currently. So that was some guidance that, so just to summarize, the commission talked about an SL for 4 dwelling units, and you're reading here 3 dwelling units, and the reason why it's 3 is because the R5 wouldn't allow 4, and that's the basis that we're using for the logic on the number of units. Be happy to answer any questions. You could call the applicant up if you have any questions, but hopefully we made it simple for you to just make a motion. Thank you.
Commissioner Gardner?
Thank you. Just a short, I think, procedural question for staff, or I guess any input from the commission. But I think, I may be misrecalling, but I think we had a motion to approve pending when we moved to postpone the case. Is that motion still live, or do we need a new motion to approve?
Thank you for the question. Ms. Laurie, do you recall if the motion for approval was then piggybacked on to postpone?
Yes, we'll just give Lori a minute to look that up.
Thank you.
And I guess as a follow-on question, which maybe the answer would need to come from Lori too, but the findings we had kind of started to make previously in that motion, are those findings, would they still be captured in anything we do today?
Yes, after a motion is made, anything that is said, that goes into the minutes and into the findings. That's right.
Through the chair, there was a main motion to recommend to the Anchorage Assembly approval of the request to rezone 3 lots from R5 to B3 district. There was an amendment to add a special limitation requiring minimum of 4 units residential with an effective clause that 3 properties be subdivided into 1. And I believe, right, that was voted down. And Commissioner Gardner moved to postpone the vote to November to have an opportunity for the applicant to propose some special limitations that would work and that they would be comfortable with, and address an interest in having some residential property included as well. We could include the findings for each of those in the minutes too. Okay.
So it sounds like we voted on the amendment, which failed, but the main motion is still pending. I think in that case that, yes, staff?
Do you need a refresher, or you're good now?
Is that correct, that the main motion is still pending?
Yeah, so Commissioner Krishna, the commission could vote on that motion and approve the rezoning to B3 with no special limitation, or someone could make a motion for a special limitation, and if they wanted to, they could read the one written on page 2.
Commissioner Ron?
Thank you, through the chair. Hopefully I'm not getting too far ahead of where the rest of the commissioners are, but I'd be happy to make that amendment. So if Lori's ready for it, I would move to amend the main motion to add special limitation language as reads: the district requires a minimum of 3 residential dwellings. The residential dwellings shall obtain a conditional certificate of occupancy prior to the issuance of a conditional certificate of occupancy for any other use. And that language is from page 2 and/or 5 of the tech memo we were provided.
Moved by Commissioner Ron, seconded by Commissioner Polis. Commissioner Ron, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you. Through the chair, just briefly, I appreciate the additional coordination and collaboration that occurred between the department and the petitioner. Based on my review of the facts and findings as they were developing in the public hearing and post-discussion, this to me appears to meet the concerns as they were addressed with respect to special limitation. So that's why I put the motion forward. Thanks.
Commissioner Gardner?
Thank you. I think just a clarification, maybe Commissioner Ron can confirm, since the motion as written, I don't think it precisely tracks the language provided in the packet, and just to confirm that the intent in what we're voting on is the language as presented. I say presented, I'm sorry, I mean, I guess, as presented in the packet.
Thank you, Commissioner Gardner. Through the chair, I would agree with that statement. The back half perhaps needs some additional alignment. So for the record, I would strike for any other use and replace that language with prior to the issuance of a conditional certificate of occupancy for any other use.
Commissioner Ron, are you still in the queue?
No.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this motion? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote.
Ms. Eber, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
That vote passes. And with that, we will move back to the main motion.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak to the main motion? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote on that too. And since it was already moved and seconded, I guess a procedural question for staff. Commissioner Strike seconded the motion and he is not here today. Or he moved it, okay.
I think the commission proceeds.
Yes, it looks like we can vote now.
Ms. Eber, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
That vote passes, and we will now take a 5-minute break while we go to find Chair Spinelli.
procedure? Yeah, okay. Oh. Okay, I'll start by reading the procedures by which the public may speak to the commission at its meeting. 1, after staff presentation is completed on the public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the commission rules and procedures. A, the petitioner, including his or her representatives, will receive 10 minutes. Part of this time may be reserved for rebuttal. B, representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, etc. will receive 5 minutes. Individuals will receive 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the commission. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the commission. Any party of interest wishing to appeal shall first file with the planning director within 7 days of the commission's decision made on the record a written notice of intent to appeal in accordance with AMC 2103-050A4A. Commission recommendations to the Anchorage Assembly are not appealable. And with that, we will begin the public hearing item, case 2023-0119. Staff's presentation, please.
Thank you, Chair Spinelli. This is a request to add the Girdwood Trails Plan as an element of the comprehensive plan. Elements of the comprehensive plan are listed in Anchorage Municipal Code, Table 21.01-1, Comprehensive Plan Elements. I pasted a portion of this table into the staff report just to make it clear where this would be added. There are 5 criteria in code for evaluating comprehensive plan amendments. The Planning and Zoning Commission will make a recommendation tonight to the Assembly, and then the Assembly will make a final decision as to whether or not to add the comprehensive plan with their own public hearing at an Assembly meeting. Criterion A is met as there are new issues, needs, and conditions for trails since the 1995 Girdwood Area Comprehensive Plan provided policy direction for trails. Of note, the 2021 AMATS non-motorized plan does not include the Girdwood area. Criterion B is met as the Girdwood Trails Plan is consistent with other elements of the comprehensive plan. Criterion C is met as the Girdwood Trails Plan will not be detrimental to public interest, health, safety, convenience, or welfare. And criterias D and E do not apply as the proposed amendment does not modify the comprehensive plan map. I did receive one phone call today that asked for clarification on the process for individual trail reviews. However, the department did not receive any public comments or agency comments in opposition. The plan shows many supporting comments from individuals and community groups, including a resolution of support from the Girdwood Board of Supervisors. As the department finds that all approval criteria for a comprehensive plan amendment are met and receive no opposing comments, the department recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission provide an approval recommendation to the Assembly to add the Girdwood Trails Plan as an element of the comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Okay, the petitioner's presentation.
Good evening. My name is Holly Spoth-Torres. I'm here on behalf of the Girdwood Service Area. Kyle Kelly is here with me as well tonight, and he can answer questions as well. The Girdwood Trails Plan is a concerted effort that brought the Girdwood community together for a holistic conversation about the future of the trail system in Girdwood. The trail plan is intended to be a 10 to 15-year guiding document for the community, local trails, organizations, agencies, and elected officials that defines the Girdwood Trails Network and identifies trail projects that are supported by the community. It's a framework that includes community-developed values, vision, and goals that local officials and managers and organizations can use to make both investment decisions and project decisions. Okay. Over the course of the existing condition analysis and stakeholder engagement, which is really the first half of the plan, following 5 themes emerged. Girdwood residents highly value access to trails. The Girdwood trail system should be equitable and balanced. The Girdwood community wants to improve connectivity and access to trails. Sustainable trail management and maintenance is important. And project approval processes should be streamlined. Okay, one of the themes I want to get into in a little bit more detail is the Girdwood trails should be equitable and balanced. Throughout the project, we talked a lot about the level of difficulty on trails, management of allowed uses on trails, the range of opportunities for all people on the trail system, a balance of the different trail classifications throughout the system, and areas where there's more primitive trails. Okay. So how does this plan do this? The second part of the plan is really what gets the work done in the plan, okay? You'll find a proposed trail network that's on the screen, along with a list of proposed projects. I'm not going to get into the detail of all those, but we can, if needed, throughout the discussion. So the projects work to achieve the vision and goals of the Girdwood Trails Plan and specifically address major themes identified through the stakeholder engagement that I just talked about. Specifically, the 2 themes that work to implement the plan are improving connectivity and access and improving the balance and diversity of the trail system. So how does the plan do that? So the plan makes recommendations for proper management and funding of existing trails. So before this plan, the Girdwood Trails Committee provided a lot of guidance for that, but now they have a community-approved document that helps them do that into the future. The plan identifies specific areas for mountain biking trail development. This is one thing that improves the diversity of trail experiences in Girdwood by defining areas where this is appropriate and suitable. Providing specific areas for mountain bikes will provide users with an exceptional trail experience tailored to mountain biking while reducing user conflicts on other multi-use trails. The plan also provides a series of new trails that will improve the balance of trail classifications within the Girdwood trail system. We heard a lot about the trail user experience between ranges of Class 1 and Class 5, and the proposed plan balances out the classifications available to trail users. And then how this plan improves connectivity and access. You'll see on the list of projects, bridges, trailheads, and new trails. Glacier Creek is a significant barrier through the middle of the valley. It prevents users from getting back and forth across, so it proposes multiple new crossings across Glacier Creek. Trailheads with a range of amenities improve access and allow users to get into the trail system from both existing new points and from new points, spreading the use more equitably throughout the valley. And then new trails. New trails are proposed to improve access to the trail system, and the new trails improves the functionality of the system by completing smaller and larger loops and connecting to neighborhoods and community facilities and providing safe and authorized routes that avoid trespass. And with that, I'll stop and save the rest for rebuttal. Thank you.
We have some questions from the commission. Commissioner Krishna.
I think my question is for staff. It really is just a clarification about the words comprehensive plan amendment. Correct me if I'm wrong, but are we looking at adding this trail as an element of the comprehensive plan because trails plans aren't automatically identified to be one of those. For example, if this was a neighborhood plan, we wouldn't necessarily be looking at a comprehensive plan amendment. Is that correct? We'd just be looking at adopting it and recommending its approval. And then also I'm looking for a clarification of whether this is, this plan has not already been adopted by the Assembly, correct? So we are actually looking at the adoption of this plan and its inclusion in the comprehensive plan as an element? Is that generally correct?
Commissioner Krishna, through the chair. So I just looked at, I had chapter 1 where that table is. So to answer your first question, there are some district plans that are listed here. So the Hillside District Plan, one of the most recent ones is the Our Downtown Anchorage Downtown District Plan. So even if this was a district plan, it would still be added to this table, since this table covers all sorts of individual freestanding plans, but they're all elements of the comprehensive plan. The rationale is in code. It refers to things being consistent with the comprehensive plan, and so that covers all of these plans. So for instance, if we get a development downtown that we're looking to be consistent with the comprehensive plan, we would not only check the official document that's the comprehensive plan, but we would also check the downtown district plan since it's covered as an element of the comprehensive plan, if that makes sense, hopefully. And then your second question, what was your second question?
I think the petitioner indicated that, that yes, we are looking actually to review and recommend adoption of this plan as part of our actions here tonight.
Yes, that is correct. Yes, this is not a plan that has been adopted yet, so this would be a new plan to be adopted.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions, is there anyone from the public that wishes to testify? Please state your name for the record.
My name is Guy Wade, and I'm going to represent the Girdwood Board of Supervisors.
Is that Wade?
Yes, sir. W-A-D-E.
Okay, go ahead.
Sure. My name is Guy Wade. I'm elected member of the Girdwood Board of Supervisors and the current Parks and Rec Supervisor. Thank you for the opportunity to let me speak in support of the Girdwood Trails Plan, case number 2023-0119. To start with, I believe the plan is extremely well written and includes all the elements the Planning Department requires per code. As required, there are many valid reasons for the amendment, as listed in the application. The 1995 Girdwood Area Plan is approximately 30 years old. The Girdwood Trails Plan identifies several issues, needs, and possibilities that the 1995 plan does not address. For example, with the new residential and commercial development proposed in Girdwood, the Girdwood Trails Plan will serve as a guide to preserve existing trails, build new trail connections, and ensure that community trail connectivity is considered. Along with the new development, we see and have seen an increased use of popular trailheads, such as Virgin Creek Trailhead. This plan identifies trailhead and parking improvements to better serve visitors who want to use the trails in Girdwood Valley and reduce the impact on the residents. I should also mention the increase in summer and winter bicycle use. This plan provides a mechanism to reduce user conflicts on our trail system. I have listed a few elements that merit the Planning Department's consideration in approving this plan. The plan itself contains many other elements that support the need for this amendment. And depending on who you ask, the answer will vary because there is such a diverse group that use our trails. And this leads me to my final point. As has been stated before, the development of this plan is really a holistic approach to the community-supported document. As with any decision by committee, few, if any, get exactly what they wanted, but almost everyone got what they would consider fair and equitable for the good of our valley. The application lists various public engagement strategies that were employed, and all of these played a role in developing this document. I would like to speak to the final engagement process that took place from November 2021 to October 2022. During this time, 16 regular and special meetings were held that included involvement with over 200 community members. These meetings went through each plan amendment and regularly took over 2 hours long. The public participation remained strong during the entire process. This shows the passion that the residents in Girdwood have for their trail system and their willingness to compromise and work towards a greater goal. So at this time, I would like to again ask the Planning Department to approve case number 2023-0119 for the comprehensive plan amendment to add Girdwood's Trails Plan as an element of the comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no questions. Anybody else wishing to testify?
Good evening. My name is Deb Essex. I'm a resident of Girdwood, and I'm here to support approving the Girdwood Trails Plan as an element and adopting it to the comprehensive plan. I'm also vice chair of the Girdwood Trails Committee, president of the Girdwood Nordic Ski Club, and one of the co-race directors of the Girdwood Trails Marathon. So it's no wonder that trails are one of my favorite aspects of Girdwood, like many people. I've participated in all these meetings that Guy referred to, all the forums, the subcommittees, the open houses during this past 3 years of this plan's development, and I feel the resulting plan encompasses a true path forward while supporting our values. I'm so impressed with the amount of hours that Holly and Kyle spent reading and incorporating the hundreds and hundreds of comments and opinions of the Girdwood residents. It was not an easy process, but it was vital to establish a written guide of our vision, values, and goals, to identify our current trails, and develop a trails plan that serves the common good, that serves the community's health, and creates Girdwood as a world-class outdoor recreation destination, especially as we are on the new Alaska Traverse Trail System. The order of the goals listed in this trails plan is key. They're listed as plan, conserve, develop, maintain, and sustain. Note that conserve is listed before develop. We have a rich history in Girdwood of utility, transportation, and mining routes that create our trail system and that we've highlighted around the valley. With this plan approved, the Trails Committee and local nonprofits can now move forward with projects that connect our trails, protect our wetlands, and provide access to our unique backyard wilderness. Most folks can name about 5 to 7 trails in Girdwood, but in fact, there's 33 trails. And due to wayfinding apps and increased tourism and a growing population, they need our help. They're not a secret anymore. They need a plan. Cataloging them in this comprehensive trails plan is essential to protect access, develop much-needed trailheads and parking, increase connectivity, and outline the diverse experience of all users. I am confident that this living document will be printed, because we're a little old school in Girdwood. It'll be the backbone of future trails meetings. It'll be coffee-stained and scribbled on and highlighted and torn and dog-eared, guiding us forward in our future decision-making, connecting our community, and creating stewardship for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to testify?
Good evening. My name is Julie Raymond Jacobian. I'm a longtime participant in the Girdwood Trails Committee and was deeply involved in the Girdwood Trail Plan development process for several years. I'm here today to ask that you not recommend the Trails Plan to be added as an element of an amendment to the comprehensive plan. The process of developing this plan was one of the most dysfunctional I've ever witnessed or had the misfortune of participating in. Much of the process of developing this plan was distressing and included constantly reinvented processes meant to serve the desires of certain user groups and to exclude others. It included harassment of members of the public. It included violations, ethics violations by the Girdwood Board of Supervisors, as was determined by the Board of Ethics. It included Muni staff without explicit authorization disbanding a community body with disastrous results. This plan is not inclusive of all community needs and desires that were raised repeatedly and in good faith, and which involve significant compromise. Simply stated, and I don't believe this is debatable, this plan does not serve the whole community, and its process was morally and legally flawed. Your body should not endorse adding to a comprehensive plan a document that is based on such poor process, untransparent actions, and municipal ethics violations, and which, by the way, the plan before you has never undergone a full public review and comment period, which the public was promised. This current version of the plan, as opposed to a previous version that the diverse subcommittee appointed to this project helped create, has stripped and erased significant work supported by many members of the community. That earlier version incorporated desires for large built trails and mountain biking areas and trails, along with desires to maintain undeveloped natural spaces, to sustain wildlife habitat and ecosystem services, to provide diverse experiences in nature, to serve a purpose for future generations, and to, most importantly, serve the whole community by enshrining a variety of user experiences in the plan. The plan before you now does not serve the whole community, but instead serves as a vehicle to facilitate the transfer of public funds into the service of private interests. And some of those private interests just happen to be the same ones not properly disclosed by Girdwood supervisors. It was expressed by many people throughout this process that it only mattered to them that this plan served their own interests. Girdwood's Board of Supervisors members have implicitly and at times explicitly supported the perspective by wanting any plan instead of a good plan. One of the supervisors during the meeting that approved this plan said, "This plan should have the community stamp of approval, but it doesn't." In conclusion, good planning serves the entire community, and this plan does not meet that basic standard. This plan disenfranchises a large number of people in Girdwood and throughout the municipality. If your body recommends to the Assembly that this document be added as an element of the comprehensive plan, you only serve to further degrade this process, to ignore violations of ethics, and to support lack of transparency
time
and
is up.
community service. Thank you.
I have questions. Commissioner Krishna.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
She would like to hear the rest of what you had to say.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Yeah, do you have anything else that you wanted to say when your time ended?
I think I was just going to reiterate that I would ask you not to recommend this as an amendment to the comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Can you spell your last name, please?
Yep, it's Raymond, R-A-Y-M-O-N-D hyphen Y-A-K-O-U-B-I-A-N.
Are there any, Commissioner Ron has a question.
Thank you, through the chair, and thank you for your testimony tonight. I appreciated hearing what you had to say, and would like to learn a little bit more about some of that. You mentioned my interpretation that members of the community, not all members of the community, are served by this plan. Could you give more information, some examples of member types that you feel aren't served by what we have before us today?
Yeah, through the chair, thank you for the question. I'm the only one here tonight representing this user group, partly because many of my neighbors and fellow residents simply just could not take the length or toxicity of this process anymore, but there is a significant group of us that are very invested in protecting natural spaces throughout our community. Spaces that include trails, but include primitive trails. And as you can see in the plan before you, there are spaces set aside for mountain biking trail building, for example, specific trails as well as specific areas that in the future may have mountain biking trails within them. And there was a large effort within the community to include spaces like that for primitive trails, for conservation, for wildlife habitat, for future generations. And through a whole series of circus-like reconfigurations of the process to make things go one way as opposed to another, all of that was removed from the plan you have in front of you. The plan that came prior to this was a much better compromise that I truly believe served all members of the community. It had lots of things in it that I didn't personally want but was not opposed to because it served everyone. But in the end, this plan before you, again, it has not gone through a full public comment period in Girdwood. The comments you see in your packet are comments on a previous version of the plan, not the plan in front of you. Yeah, I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Commissioner Krishna has another question.
Yeah, could you elaborate on what you mean by saying that this plan hasn't gone through a full public review period?
Yeah, so the large appendix of comments that you can see in your packet is from a previous plan. Those comments were taken and major substantive revisions were made to the plan, including removing all mention of natural spaces, all discussion of natural spaces, all natural spaces from the plan itself. And we were promised as the public that that new substantially, significantly revised version would go through a public comment period, which never occurred.
Thank you, but just to clarify, the plan that have seen here today which is the final version, has been out for public comment as per our procedures?
Nope. The previous plan that you see all the comments from had a public comment period. I can't remember the exact time length of it, but a specified public comment period where people wrote in comments. Those comments were then reviewed, and then substantive changes were made to the plan, which now sits before you today. So, and again, the Girdwood Trails Committee and the public in Girdwood were promised that revised. It's a blue line plan. The previous was a red line plan. Not to get into those details, but the blue line plan, which is the final plan, never underwent a full public comment period like we were promised.
I would like to just say that this hearing is a full public hearing that is noticed to the public. Written testimony can be accepted as well as the testimony you're giving tonight. So this could be considered the public comment period.
Well, the community of Girdwood certainly didn't know that they could come here tonight and comment on every single change that had been made between the versions of the plan. I came here today to make a recommendation that you do not recommend this go forward to the assembly, which is a wholly different kind of public comment than I would give if I was giving you comments on each section of the plan and what had been removed and changed. And this is not what we were promised. We were promised a public review period of the document itself, like we had for previous versions.
Okay, thank you. I see no more questions. Is there anybody else wishing to testify?
Good evening. My name is Brian Burnett. I've been lucky enough to be participating in the trails culture in Girdwood for well over 20 years as a resident of Girdwood, and I have very fond memories as a young child skiing on some of our first trails in Girdwood, such as the 1969 Junior National Nordic Trail that was built to host a pretty significant event at Alyeska. I'm here tonight to speak in support of this plan before the community. Girdwood has a real vibrant trail culture. It's well-attended meetings of the Girdwood Trails Committee, Friends of the Trails, and Girdwood Nordic Ski Club. These groups help manage the trails within the community. Trails connect our community, that is for sure. Our inventory of trails support adventure. They allow us to engage nature and endless opportunity for physical enjoyment of the outdoors. Now, what we need is a plan to move forward with that will allow us to help plan for operations and opportunities of a growing community and a growing outdoor culture. Our community came together to craft this plan. We have been meeting on it for years and years, and there was significant public process in it. This plan represents what most of our community wants in the ways of trails and how they are managed. There has been significant public process. Girdwood should certainly be a trail town. Trail-based recreation anchors healthy communities. Trail-based recreation and systems enhance our land values and the quality of our life. I respectfully request that Planning and Zoning adopt this plan as presented so it may be included in a comprehensive plan moving forward. I appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you. See no questions. Is anybody else wishing to testify on this matter?
Good evening. For the record, my name is Chris Schutte, S-C-H-U-T-T-E. I'm a local resident, but also for profession, I'm in the community and economic development field. My comments tonight on the Girdwood Area Plan proposal is that I want to recognize the fact that this plan did an excellent job of weaving an important factor that often gets left out in our planning and zoning conversations, particularly around comprehensive plans, and that's the role of the economy in supporting our communities, our neighborhoods, and in this case, Girdwood. Of all the 50 states in the U.S., Alaska may have the lowest population density, but we certainly have the greatest amount of acreage and other opportunities to get outside and enjoy nature. That's what brings a lot of people to Alaska, and certainly that's what keeps a lot of families like mine in Alaska. When surveyed by UAA's CED, Community and Economic Development Division, they found that a majority of Alaskans really rely on these opportunities to engage with nature and outdoors as one of the primary reasons why many families choose to stay in Alaska. Locals and visitors spend a lot of money on equipment to get outside as it snows today, and I think about the ungodly amount of money I'm going to spend on fat bikes this winter. Certainly that resonates with me. This local economy, or spending money locally, helps circulate throughout the rest of the economy. So money spent by visitors and tourists enjoying our outdoor economy benefits the community at large. In-state, I find these numbers staggering, but from the UAA CED, the number of in-state consumer spending related to outdoor recreation activities is almost $3.2 billion annually. That's $3.2 billion. Now, granted, that number is statewide, but it underscores the importance of outdoor activities and access to outdoor activities for our local economy. I want to also highlight that in Girdwood in particular, an area that is blessed with tremendous outdoor activities, over half the jobs in Girdwood fall into that economic sector, tourism and or outdoor recreation, et cetera. So in recognition of the importance of economy in making our communities healthy and safe to live in, I do want to highlight that I find that this plan does a fantastic job of recognizing that impact on the economy, and that the findings and recommendations of this plan will support further economic activity for Girdwood and for the state at large. So with that, I would encourage the body to pass it, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Just to be sure, nobody else wants to testify. Seeing none, we will go for the rebuttal.
So we will just take questions.
Commissioner Ron.
Thank you to the chair. If you could please speak to the process around public review draft to final. Thank you.
Sure. So initially, we, through the process, created a draft document that we put out to the public and we gave a period of public comment. And through that, we received close to 2,000 comments that we deciphered. And then we, Holly and I, incorporated those into it, and we created what is known locally as the red line plan. So we made red line changes to the original plan. Through that process, we did have areas like areas for permanent trails, mountain bike, different things. And we presented that to the Girdwood Trails Committee. Girdwood Trails Committee was really our body that we worked with to come up with the final draft. And through that, they rejected that red line plan. And so in order to keep the process moving and getting to something of a final plan, we asked for the committee members, which is anybody who's attended one meeting and is a resident of Girdwood, and there's stipulations, could submit amendments that they would like to see to the plan to take us to another draft that we could bring before the body. And through that, they presented us a whole, I think we received close to maybe 24 amendments. And then we went one by one through each one of those amendments, had public process where people could talk about them, and I think maybe a dozen ended up getting accepted, and the other dozen got rejected. And with that, we created the red line document. And then with the red line document, blue line document, it was the second version, version 2, we presented that forward. At the same time, we were contending with GBOS's request to get the plan completed, Girdwood Board of Supervisors, and the budgeting requirements with that. And so at the point once we got done approving all those amendments, we took that final blue line document to the Trails Committee, and they voted to accept it. Which at time, then we took it to the Girdwood Land Use Committee, and that went through a 2-month process. So it had a hearing and then a public testimony, and then it passed there. And Girdwood Land Use is one person, one vote, so if you're a resident, you can come vote, anybody can attend. So some meetings we got 10, some meetings we got 2, but that went through a process. And then we took it to the Girdwood Board of Supervisors, and at the Girdwood Board of Supervisors, there was a amendment to the main motion to pass to have a 2-week public hearing period where people could submit public comments about this Redland plan, and then that would become appendix. We wouldn't respond to them, but we would put them as appendix in the plan, and that failed 1-4, and it went back to the main motion, and it passed 5-0 by the GBOS.
Can you state and spell your name for the record?
Yes, Kyle Kelly, K-Y-L-E, last name Kelly, K-E-L-L-E-Y. And I'm the Girdwood Service Area Manager for the Municipality of Anchorage.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you for that kind of explanation of the process there. I'm curious, there was a comment about an understanding of a promise for further review of what I gather would have been the blue line draft, and what was your understanding of how that blue line was communicated to the public, and maybe what the perception was that or what the understanding may have been as to the ability to comment further on that draft?
Well, we did present it, we gave the final version to the Girdwood Trails Committee for review, and through that there was a public comment period in that time. We did send, part of that was when we went to the Girdwood Board of Supervisors, a question was given to them, shall we consider doing a public review period with this? We presented them with the financial needs for it to happen, and at that point that's when the amendment was voted down to go for extended public comment period through that. But through it we did go through 3 bodies that reviewed the document before it was finally approved by the Girdwood Board of Supervisors.
And Commissioner Pullis.
So there's the concern about the natural space designation, and I don't completely understand. It kind of sounded like it was people wanted this designated so they could put bikes trails on it, but then some people didn't want it. Can you guys just kind of explain that process and that concern from your side, what you saw?
Yes, so there was, through the original development of the plan, there was zones to become natural spaces, and they would be limited to trail development no larger or higher than level 2, which would be pretty primitive, no mountain bikes, so non-mechanized use, And it would just basically keep more of a very rural standard of trails in that. And through the public comment period, we saw a lot of people felt that was a land use designation, and they felt that was the trail plan wasn't meant for that. They felt like the Gerwood area plan should handle that. So our recommendation through staff was to turn it into areas for primitive trails. So those areas would just be limited to what type of trail development we could do there. It didn't delimit what the land use was going to be. It just, with the trail corridor, it couldn't be more than level 2 and no mountain bikes allowed on it, or mechanized bikes.
I see no further questions. With that, we will close the public hearing. What is the will of the body? Commissioner Krishna, would you like to state your motion while we wait for a second?
Sure. I move in case 2023-0119 to recommend to the Anchorage Assembly approval of the comprehensive plan amendment to add the Girdwood Trails plan as an element of the comprehensive plan.
Okay, that has been seconded by Commissioner Gardner. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I intend to support this motion. I do believe that we heard from the petitioner about a substantive and extremely involved public process, certainly from the addendums to this plan and the appendix. You can see truly an immense amount of public input, more than we see in many neighborhood plans, I believe. And I won't speak to the specific content, but I will maybe also note that this is a recommendation, and there are opportunities for further content changes to be made by the Assembly.
Anyone else wishing to speak to the motion? Commissioner Ron.
Thank you. Through the chair, appreciate the previous commissioner's comments in supporting the motion. I as well intend to support the motion. Would like to acknowledge the work done by the parties to put forward the plan that has been developed. On a personal note, I had my first opportunity this last fall to attend a middle school cross-country race in Girdwood. Perhaps the most fun race I got to attend all season, given the setting and the community atmosphere that went around it. So hopefully I'll get a chance again soon to attend another race, if not participate on trails there. So good work, and thank you.
I will say that I too intend to support the motion, even though I do have some hesitation about any talk limiting mountain biking on primitive trails, because those are my favorite kind. Call the question.
Ms. Eber, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Next order of business. Can we have the staff presentation for case 2023-0125?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. If Commission members recall, this item was originally scheduled for the October 9th meeting and then was postponed. Anchorage Municipal Code Title 21 does grant the power to recommend, to make a recommendation to the Anchorage Assembly of the CIB and the CIP for Planning and Zoning Commission. And the commission has been provided all of the documents for this item. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues that can provide the commission with a presentation and answer your questions this evening.
We're ready for you.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. My name's Lance Wilbur. I am the Executive Director of Economic and Community Development, pretty much the departments that out in the Permit Center. I'm here tonight to share with you the proposed 2024 to 20 capital improvement program. There, as Ryan mentioned, the Planning and Zoning Commission has a responsibility to review the capital improvement budget and program and make recommendations to the Assembly. The reason I'm here is, as Ryan mentioned, when the request was made that we have a presentation on in October, I suggested that the Planning Department could work through it. We had some staff changes, so I'm here to help you tonight. You guys are a little behind the ball, but I think I'm going to catch you up. The departments that report to me are the Public Works Department, so Project Management Engineering, the Traffic Department, Maintenance and Operations, and obviously Community Development. I have some familiarity with the bond program, and so in my previous, so those of you who I haven't met, I'm going to give you a little bit of a rundown of the capital program itself. So with me tonight, I've got Stephen Refuse from Parks and Recreation and Courtney Peterson, who is my new Public Works Administration and Finance Manager. Courtney previously worked in OMB, so I think between the three of us, we can answer any questions on process and projects. Kind of where we are in the process right now is, for those who are not familiar, we typically do reach out to community councils in March of every year. We seek requests of projects, and we ask them to submit those nominations to us by May. The departments then review those, and then about in July, we make a recommendation of a list of projects. We send those to the administration from all of those departments, and then as they are preparing a consideration of all of those projects, that's what creates the proposed capital improvement budget and the 6-year program of all kinds of funding sources. Typically, the requests from departments are focused on the upcoming bond, but it also includes a lot of requests for state funds, and so we'll talk a little bit about that. Where we are in the process is the Planning and Zoning Commission has gotten this one. It's already in front of the Assembly for public review and public hearing, and they are, I think their second public hearing is actually tomorrow night, and they are scheduled to act on this capital improvement budget and program on the 21st of November. As in your packet, the capital improvement budget includes about $190 million in total. 55 of that is on bonds. I'm going to focus primarily on the proposed bond projects. I think in your packet you've not only received the book itself, but you should have received a map. And what I'm going to do is first start off with the memo that the Planning Department put together dated October 9th and talk a little bit about some of the projects. They have a bullet here for community development and go down this list. Also in your packet, you should have received a memo from the Office of Management and Budget that has a little bit more detail about each of those individual projects, and I am going to kind of walk through those. For the bonds, that we have a total of 46 different projects from a variety of departments: project management, engineering, traffic, maintenance, the library, police, fire, and I'll highlight the ones I think are probably the ones that might be of interest to this commission. and some of those that have been of interest to the commissions in the past. And certainly, if you have, in your review, if you have questions on any particular project, I can try to address those. So what I'm going to start with is the memo that's dated October 9th to Ryan Yell from Office of Management and Budget. It's about a 6-page memo, and it has a list of all of those projects. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to walk through that memo and then highlight some of the key projects, and if you have questions, we'll go from there. I wasn't planning on going through all 46, but I think there's a couple of them I'd like to highlight. That sound good?
Fantastic.
Okay. So if you look on page 3 of the memo, or page 1 of 8 from the Management and Budget Office, the top of it starts, there's the first one that starts with fire. And then this list of projects is commiserate with the map that you have, and I'm just going to go down in order. In honor of Commissioner Strike, since he's not here tonight, for those of you who might have been aware, in the past, Commissioner Strike has always been interested on how come we bond for vehicles. Particularly, why do we bond for ambulances or police cars or things like that, and I want to talk a little bit about that. We do bond for and have bonded for police ambulances and fire trucks in the past. The fire department is not looking for new engines or trucks in this one, but they are looking to replace ambulances. Generally, what we're trying to do is we keep the frame and replace the box. In this particular case, I think they have 2 complete buys that they want to do, so this would replace 2 complete ambulances. One of the things that I'll mention when we bond for, while we issue a 20-year bond for pretty much all of these projects, for things like an ambulance or a police car, their depreciation happens faster than 20 years, or faster than 20 years, so we retire that debt faster. So we manage the debt to retire it when the equipment meets its useful life, which in an ambulance is about 7 years. So it's a little different for a fire truck, it's a little different for APD vehicles, it's a lot different for a road or a park improvement, which are typically 20 or longer years. So that is why we do bond for fire trucks. The other one I want to mention on this one here, if you look at fleet replacement, as you were looking in the capital improvement budget, you will notice that fleet replacement in all categories, bonds, Fed, state, and other, is $10 million. So for perspective, the bond amount is going to be roughly $1 million. The state request is about 5, the federal request is about 2, and the other is about a little more than 2. For perspective, if you look at across of all of our fleet, our heavy equipment, our APD fleet, and our general government, it's almost 70% depreciated. That means 70% of the fleet in all 3 categories is beyond its useful life. So we are in the need to make some changes. In the past, we have been spending most of our resources that we do receive, and we don't generally receive this much. We spend it primarily on APD vehicles. Occasionally, we'll use some on a grader or a sander, and occasionally some light-duty equipment. But when you look at the list, if you have questions about that, we have about $1 million bond that would be for APD vehicles, general government fleet, or heavy equipment. And then in the other category, we take part of our operating budget and we do buy vehicles, which is about $2.3 million. It's a big number for fleet, and so it's because the condition of our fleet is aging rapidly. I just want to point out on the bottom of that first page, the ADA improvements. What we do here is if we have missing ADA pieces or pieces that are not meeting current ADA standards, we pick up those improvements. Last thing, this construction season, we did roughly 40 or 43 of them. So if you turn to page 2, the one I want to point your attention to is S3, which is the downtown signals on 4th Avenue. The reason I want to point this one out to you, it's one of the many projects in the capital improvement budget where bond monies are provided to match a federal contribution. And typically it's 80% federal or 90% federal. And you'll see that at the end when I speak on transit. The other one I want to point to on this page is S6, which is downtown lighting and signal upgrades. This one, you will see, if this was a 10-year CIP, this thing would be 12 years long. Our downtown signal system is aging, and it's costing us roughly $5 to $8 million a block to replace it. This particular project, we are coordinating with the Block 41 development. Their Block 41 is where 4th Avenue Theater, Key Bank. The developer has got some work going on this year, so we're bonding for it in '24, so we're ready to go in '25. So we're not waiting on the '25 bond to get it done. It was timed that way, so that's a $4 million number. On page 3, I think the one I want to point out here is a $2 million for roads and drainage and service area. We've got about 420 miles of storm drain system in Anchorage, and a lot of it is really old. For those of you who are engineers, designers, and working on roadways, you know that a lot of our storm drain system is aging. A lot of times we'll use these funds to replace, where we had recently at DeBar, we'll had a collapsed culvert underneath the road. We use these funds to address those immediate needs as well. So I want to point that out. And then on page 4, probably the one that's predominant here is a West Anchorage snow disposal site. So we have a snow disposal site that would be located off of International Airport Road. For those of you where the large private parking lot is at the corner of Minnesota and International, our street maintenance Northwood section is right there. If you go behind that, if you drive down Minnesota and you see all those tour buses parked on your right as you're driving down the road, the snow dump site would be on the other side of that. So it's this $5 million is half of the money we would need to build it. It's a roughly $9 to $11 million snow dump site. All our snow dump sites are at capacity, and frankly, we've lost a couple snow dump sites in the last decade, which puts a strain on the other ones that we have. And in West Anchorage, we are really in need of a snow dump site. So that's, the design has been done, the permits have been acquired, we're just looking for construction money to get it done. And then on page 5, I want to point out one key trails project. It's the Tony Nose Coastal Trail to Ship Creek Trail Connection. This one here is about $1.5 million to match federal aid. So that's an important project. The next two road projects, 36th Avenue and 42nd. So 36th Avenue will be repaving Latouche, or repaving 36 from Latouche to Lake Otis. We did it from Old Seward to Latouche. We're going to keep going to the east. The next one is probably, 42nd Avenue is the largest funded road project we have in the upcoming bond. It's going to be roughly $8.6 million. We're going to be rebuilding 42nd Avenue from Lake Otis all the way to Florina, which is pretty much all the way at the end. This 8.6 will get us from Lake Otis to Piper. So we're going to need in the future to go the extra 3 blocks to the east. A few more, and then I'll ask a couple for questions. We're going to be repaving Dowling Road. For those of you who drive Dowling Road between Elmore and Lake Otis, we were able to put a patch on it this year, so we'll be repaving that one next year. And then Northern Lights Boulevard from Lake Otis to Burgaw, we're going to be repaving that next year with the bonds. And I think the last two I'll mention is traffic calming. We've got a $500,000 request for traffic calming. It's probably one of the most popular requests that we get from community councils. The Assembly, when we briefed them on this, they asked why are we not asking for more money, and the reason is that we received 1.5 or $2 million in state grant funds last year. So they've got a lot of money and a lot of work ahead of them. So asking for more money for bond projects, that is why we didn't up that amount for here. And then as I mentioned earlier, one of the benefits of many projects, including transit, I think it's the municipality basically puts in a dime and the feds bring in 90 cents. So for the transit, it's about 1.8, almost $1.9 million, and they're going to get 12 million in, or 11 million in from federal aid. So a lot of the other projects that you see on this list are projects that are programmatic. We see them every single year: flooding and glaciation, alley paving, intersection paving, lights. Those things are, they're projects all over town. And again, these are projects only within the Anchorage Roads and Service Drainage Area, only within ARTSA. You will not see projects in Eagle River in here. You will not see projects on the bond, or you will not on pretty much on the hillside or in Girdwood, because it's in those service areas. Eagle River and Chugiak, they have their own service area. You will see funds in there for state legislative requests and some allocation of their fund balance for parks and for roads. So overall, the $55 million bond for the ones that the administration had proposed would capture all of those. The road element would be around 47. The parks is a little under 3. And then facilities is roughly $2 to $3 million. So, Mr. Chairman, there's just one closing comment I'll mention. It's not related here in case you read about it in the newspaper. There are 2 bond proposals being proposed by the Assembly that were not brought forward by the administration. One of them is for public restrooms. I think the Assembly is going to be considering that tomorrow night. It's $12.5 million to bond for public restrooms in the other one is a bond proposal to make improvements to Chugach State Park. Last year, the voters created a brand new service area that would then allow a bond to be proposed to provide project improvements to access Chugach State Park. They could be road improvements, parking lot improvements, and the like. The administration hasn't proposed, though. I can't speak to them, but I think we were more involved because we were asked on the Chugach Park access, but not on the public restroom. So with that, if there's questions on these, and again, I apologize that we weren't available on the 9th. You guys are a little behind the ball. And we'll improve to make it better for you next year. Thank you.
Commissioner Ron.
Thank you to the chair. Mr. Wilbur, thank you for coming tonight and giving the presentation that you did. I appreciate the level of detail that you provided. For me, it was just right. My question isn't about any particular number or project specifically as proposed, but it's around proportion. And when I look at those numbers, the largest of them is roads and traffic. Simple math shows me about 85% of the proposed bond budget is in that single category. Can you talk to me a little bit about the thinking that went into the prioritization specific to how and why money gets allocated? Understanding that, roads and traffic are expensive, right? Our city needs to move, but it seems to be perhaps from one glance, inequitable in terms of the money spent on roads versus other forms of transportation.
Through the chair, Commissioner Ron, I will do my best. Generally, the way this works is departments, all the departments provide a list of projects, generally in priority order. We submit those to the administration. The administration gets their executive team together, and they make basically 2 determinations. One is, what's the total amount of bonds that we want to issue, and that's based on a variety of metrics. And then the other is, how do they want to divvy it up? And I can tell you that our list was much longer than this. I'm sure Parks and Recs was much longer, and facilities was a lot longer. So it's really administrative call. It's a decision by the administration how they came up with a certain percentage for each one. I do know that in many of their analysis or their thought process is how much are we going to be spending on categories of projects and how much are we going to be spending on bonds? Because sometimes if you just looked at the categories, the money may be coming from another place, not just for bonds. So I can't I can't give you a clearer or different answer than that, but that's my experience how it's done.
Thanks for that clarification. That's helpful.
Commissioner Krishna.
Sure, I'll ask about some specific projects. There is a transit center site selection study that's in the works right now. I'm wondering if that is, it's obviously not on the bond for this year. I always find the transit items to be a little bit, area-wide, right? I'm wondering what's the proposed funding mechanism for that project in the future?
Through the chair, Commissioner Krishna, I think what's going to happen is public transportation is going to seek one of two avenues. One of them, they're going to seek federal funds to make those improvements. And in many other jurisdictions, they do that through a public-private partnership. It's not generally all with the agency. I don't see, it's not in the 6-year look, but my guess is it'll be a federal request, probably a grant above the general allocation in which they receive. And the best way to do that is once you have a site selected, then you can put in a stronger application rather than we think we're going to relocate and we think it's going to be here and we think it's going to be this much. So if there's something different than that, I'll make sure that I let Director Acton know.
Thank you, and I do have a follow-up question, and maybe this is my version of Greg's question that I ask every year, which is about reinvestment focus areas. We look at the circles on the map in this map that we receive every year, and maybe I'll just leave it out there and just ask how the department thinks about reinvestment focus areas, and if there is a proposal in the works to bring forward some sort of tax incentive package or some other mechanisms to implement those RFAs.
I'll get it started. In community development, from the administration's perspective, at least from the department's perspective, we're not sort of ruled that out, but I could also say that we probably haven't taken a lot of effort to create a tax incentive for those particular areas. There's a lot of work already in place to give, if you have a deteriorated area and then get tax abatements in those, but to provide a specific tax incentive inside the redevelopment areas, they currently do not exist.
Commissioner Ron, are you back in the queue?
No, I'm not.
Commissioner George.
Through the chair, thank you. Thank you for the overview this evening. I appreciate as well the level of detail that you've given it to us and allowed us to delve where we are most interested. I had a couple of areas I wanted to ask you about. The first is the snow dump site item. Is the land that's being proposed for this site dedicated parkland, and would it require a citywide vote to undedicate if that's the case?
Through the chair, Commissioner George, it's not dedicated park.
Okay, thank you. Next question I've got through the chair is, I see the police department building on Elmore is slated for heating system replacement. I know this is kind of small potatoes, but is there not a maintenance and operations line for things like boilers in various facilities budgets? I've seen this before where we will bond for something like a boiler system, and it just strikes me as something that has a natural service life. And maybe if you can elaborate a little bit on that.
Through the chair, Commissioner George, excellent question. So in the case of the boilers, for those of you who, the APD building on Elmore was built in 1983. We need to replace basically the entire heating system, which is going to be about $500,000. And then the roof is going to be roughly $1 million, even though the design is already done. But to your point, we do have a regular maintenance and service program. But at some point, the entire system needs to get redone, and we have a lot of buildings that were built in the 80s, and we can't find parts, and the maintenance is just, they're beyond their useful life. And so, and the APD is one of those facilities. We have a couple more there sort of in line as well, but very good question. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could just follow up on that, it seems almost a philosophical concern. You know, we've got many municipal buildings. I don't know exactly how many. I wish I knew something like that off the top of my head, but
164.
Thank you. That's
You're welcome.
Impressive. Thank you. So 164 buildings that have roofs and mechanical systems and safety features and parking lots and all these different things that have a natural, useful, depreciable life about them. I don't see all of them coming before us. Is it just a judgment call as to the big ones do and the small ones don't? Or maybe you can talk about that.
Through the chair, yes, thank you. So we do have a list of improvements, and you will see in the maintenance and operations section under, which is mostly facilities, we have a long list of requests for roofs, boilers, large capital investments inside those facilities. There, you know, that we have some at the Denina, some at the Egan, some at the PAC, some at fire stations, but most of our requests currently right now is under state funding for those receipts. But we do have a list, and the priority is based on three things. One, the facility maintenance staff, they know the facilities very well. They know which ones they can, maybe a $10,000 or $50,000 investment will hold it off for 3 or 5 years, where it doesn't matter how much we're putting in. And some of it we just got to replace. We replaced a roof at Bering Street where we had a roof on a roof and water between the two roofs. And at some point you just got to take it all off and do it. So,
Thank you. And through the chair, my final one I wanted to touch upon tonight, one that's even smaller but is near and dear to my heart, is alley paving. I had the great experience of serving as a chair of a community council years ago, and this was one of the issues that came up, and we were successful in having some alley paving done in our community. And I guess it was through that experience we learned that they don't underground utilities as a requirement when that is done, and so that seemed like a missed opportunity to spend that kind of a municipal resource. At the time, I think a lot of it was state funded, but now I think it's an ongoing municipal expense. And just to spend that kind of money and not co-locate or try and incentivize the utilities to underground, when I know a lot of them have an undergrounding plan, and there's an undergrounding surcharge that's charged by the it's approved by the Regulatory Commission as a charge on most folks' bills. And I would encourage using these dollars when we can get the most bang for the buck. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, what is the will of the body? Commissioner George, would you like to state your motion?
Through the chair, I move in case 2023-0125 to recommend to the Anchorage Assembly approval of the proposed 2024 capital improvement budget and the proposed 2024 to 2029 capital improvement program.
Okay, we are just, we have a seconded by Commissioner Gardner. Commissioner George, would you like to speak to your motion?
Just briefly, I want to commend the administration for putting together what is admittedly an austere proposal compared to what we've had in years past. We don't enjoy tremendous amounts of state capital budgets like we used to, and they certainly are dealing with many competing needs. Just the roof example and the boiler example, 164 buildings that need these things, and we're getting one of them this year. My observation is that the lion's share of this money is federal and state,
and we've got to figure out how to best spend it, and I think the department is doing a good job of that. And I would just leave it there and encourage anyone else to share their findings as well.
Anyone else? Hearing none, we'll call the vote.
Ms. Eber, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
That motion passes. And we will, are there any commissioner comments? General comments. Commissioner Ron.
Thank you. Through the chair, just briefly wanted to say thank you to the department for recommending participation or attendance in the Housing Summit and activities that occurred last week. Found listening in on Friday to the summit at UAA was very informative. It's available on YouTube, and would recommend other commissioners, as they have time, if they didn't participate, to go back and listen to some of that stuff. Thanks.
And looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded. We are out of here.